Everybody, thank you all for joining us this morning. Beautiful davening for Hashem and for our breakfast. And I wanted to do something a little bit different this morning, l'kavod Chanukah, and that is, for the very first time, to use music as an exhibit during a shir, which I've never done in the past because I've never quite given a shir that deals with the mystical secrets, the Kabbalah of music. Because you don't usually find that kind of thing in Svarim, generally speaking. And if there was any sefer that you'd imagine that would speak about the mystical inner dimension of music, it's the Modzhitzer, the Divrei Yisrael of Modzhitz. Because everybody knows Modzhitz their main thing is music. So many of our Nagunim, the very complicated and intricate melodies come from the world of Modzhitz. Rabbi Tzion Schenker popularized a lot of that music. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach was very influenced by Modzhitz as well. Modzhitz is a world of music. That was the way that they served Hashem. And in this Beis Medrash also, Baruch Hashem, music is a major part of our Avodah, as it was this morning. And in the Sefer Divrei Yisrael of Modzhitz, he has a very lengthy piece, which we're not going to do inside because of length, but I'm happy to send it to anybody as a PDF if you want to see it actually inside. The shir is going to be not text-based. But it is in Sefer Divrei Yisrael, and it's the piece on Miketz and Chanukah. So it's exactly for our parsha, for our time of year, and it's a lengthy piece. It's 8 pieces, but hopefully we're going to be able to be mekatzer very much and just sort of present it in a much more accessible, concise way with Hashem's help. And I have to give a gigantic shout out to a very dear friend of mine, Rabbi Jacob Boehm, who pointed me in the direction of this piece. And I saw it, and I said, I absolutely have to teach it. And then I realized it was 8 pages, and I said, this is impossible, so we're not going to do it inside. So I'm just going to give it outside with hopefully a little bit of musical accompaniment to demonstrate exactly what he means when he's speaking about the notes and octaves and so on. What a privilege to learn this teaching with all of you. And Schus Yagan Aleinu, the merit of the tzaddik and all the tzaddikim should stand by us and all of our families this Chanukah, Be'ezras Hashem. So the tzaddik is commenting on a pasuk in this week's parsha where Yaakov Avinu tells the Shvatim, "K'chu mizimras haaretz," right? Go back to this Egyptian ruler and take mizimras haaretz, take from the growths of the land, the spices of the land, take from the produce of Eretz Yisrael, and bring it with you. And the tzaddikim already in Rabbi Nachman, you find in other tzaddikim, zimras is very obviously seems to be a reference to music, right? Zimra, zemer is music. And so the tzaddik says, "Chumi zimras haaretz," every land, every field, really every blade of grass that's been made into a song. Yonatan Razel, yesh lo nigun miyuchad mishalo, right? Every single tiny little blade of grass has a song of its own. Certainly Eretz Yisrael has a song of its own. And Yaakov Avinu very deeply was telling the Shvatim, "Chumi zimras haaretz," take the song of Eretz Yisrael with you. This is a parsha of song. And we sing in Modzhitzer, which is meant to be sung as a song. It's a piyut, whatever tune you happen to use. We say, Bnei Bina, children of Bina, of wisdom, of intellect, people who are connected to comprehension, to understanding, Yemei Shmoina, 8 days, Kavu, they instituted Shir Urinanim. They instituted for singing. Right, like we say in Alanisim, these are days for song, these are days for singing, these are days for praise, and there's a deep connection, as we're going to learn, between Chanukah and singing, and it also happens, again, not happens, but it coincides with this week's parsha, where we have a reference to music, K'chu mizimras haaretz. So the tzaddik wants to understand what's the depth of these words, right? Bnei Bina, Yemei Shmoina Kavu Shir Urinanim. It seems to be referring to Chazal, right? Bnei Bina, right? Those who were gifted and endowed with the gift of comprehension and intellect. Yemei Shmoina Kavu Shir Urinanim. They instituted 8 days for singing and for praise. But what's the progression and what is the connection between Chanukah and song particularly? So this is how the tzaddik begins. So first we need to take a step outside and we need to explain something that to some of the Chaber, if you've been learning with us, which Baruch Hashem many of us have, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with a certain code, a very, very specific, detailed code. And that code, many of us are familiar, some call it the 10 midos, some call it the 10 Sefirot. There are 10 fundamental blueprint-like energies and a matrix, a framework of these energies with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu coded all of existence. 3 of these 10, the first 3, relate to the spiritual realm, and they still actually manifest in particular energies, but they're just not coded into this reality, but they're coded into the realities above. They're like the engine in the system or thoughts within a person's brain, which are, can't really feel it, you can't touch it, but it powers the whole thing, but they're beyond. And the lower 7 is the blueprint for what's called Olam Hazeh. And that's why throughout the whole entire world, you find patterns of 7, whether it's 7 colors, right, of the rainbow, whether it's 7 continents, 7 classical planets, 7 classical metals, 7 musical notes. Everything in this world is 7, 7, 7. Without getting into complicated names now, generally the names of those lower 7, not generally, specifically, are Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. You might be familiar with some of these names. Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. And they go in triads, they go in sets of 3, Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes, which are set up theoretically as one on the right, one on the left, and one in the center. So an easy way to think about this triad is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, right? With Avram being the midah of Chesed, Yitzchak, of course, being the midah of Gevura, and Yaakov being the midah of Tiferes. And then you go down to the next triad, which is Netzach, Hod, Yesod, which happens to be Moshe, Aaron, and Yosef, but not getting into complicated things now. And then finally, the last Sefira is the Sefira of Malchus at the bottom. But what we need to know is that these lower 7, which again, like we just expressed, manifest as the blueprint for the entire structure of reality as we know it, are born out of an energy, a Sefira, a midah called Bina. Bina being the third energy from the top. So you have Keser, so the first, Chachma, and Bina. Bina is the midah that is immediately before the 7 lower midas. It's called Aim Habanim Semecha. The aim, it's called the mother. It's like a womb that's going to give birth to the 7 midos, right? To all the midas, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus that come and emerge out of that world of Bina. And that world of Bina is already, like we expressed, is a completely different reality. We don't know anything about that place. That place is preserved for what's called Olam Haba. If the lower 7 midas are the blueprint for Olam Hazeh, Bina is associated with Olam Haba. It's a completely different realm, a completely different reality. This is the reality of Bina. The Aim Habanim, the mother that gives birth to the children. And that's the deeper meaning of Shloch HaKan, right? Where we send away the mother, Ve'es Habanim Tikach Lach. Right? It means that Olam Haba is not for us. You got to send away the mother. Meaning, Bina, which is the mother, which is the womb that all the midas emerge from, we have no hasaga, we have no connection to it. It's a different reality. It's beyond. It's away. But the Banim, right, which are the lower midas, that's Olam Hazeh, our reality, that code that emerges on every strata and facet of existence. That's Habanim Tikachlach. You can take the Banim, but the aim, the Shalach is our aim. Because the aim, which is Bina, is completely beyond us. Completely beyond. Now with this Hakdama, just one more aspect to the Hakdama is that there's a way in which all of these 10 energies fit in to the fundamental essential name of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, which we don't express, which is the name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. These 4 letters are a container or contain within themselves these 10 energies. And of course, these 4 are just contained within one, right? Because it's just Hashem. This is just His name, right? It was absolutely one. And so all these energies are Chas v'Shalom not divine in any way, Chas v'Shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Echad, Yachid, Umiyuchad. He manifests Himself with these 10 vessels. And He creates the world in this way. So from one comes duality. So how do we have the 10 midas fitting into the 4 letters of Yud Kei Vav, okay? So it goes like this. Let's start with the last Hey. The final Hey is the midah of Malchus. It's like the recipient. It's like a hand has 5 fingers. It's reaching out to receive. Malchus is the final vessel. It takes all of the other energies and it receives it. It concretizes it. In the elements, that last Hey is the element of earth. earth, which is like the physical, dross, corporeal. It's able to take all of the other energies, which we're going to learn about in a minute, and it's able to bring them to life. They have mass. They have they have something concrete that they're able to manifest within, but it's all receptive. That's the energy of Malchus. The Vav is Gematria 6, is the 6 Sefirot that are beyond Malchus, which are Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. These 6 energies that are part of the 7, right? That lower 7 category, which is Olam Hazeh, and they come down into Malchus. That's the letter Vav. So if we already have 7, because the last Hey is Malchus and the Vav is 6, so Gesund and Stark, so Bina is the next one up, right? Bina is the first Hey. This is called Hey Ilah. The elevated Hey, we shouldn't really think about the letters Yud Ke Vav Ke as linear, right? Yud and Hey and Vav like a cross. You should think about them as vertical, not horizontal, because they go up and up and up, right? The way that we're setting it up now is that Hey is on the bottom, and then the Vav is on top, and then Hey is above that, and then the Yud is above that. So we have Malchus, the 6 Sefirot, so that's 7 already in the Vav, and Hey is the lower 7. And then the first Hey is Bina, and then the Yud above it is Chachma, which is the 9th. And the tip of the Yud, it's a very, very deep secret, the tip of the Yud, what's called the Kutza de Eis Yud, where the Sefer begins to write the letter from that little thorn, that little point on top, that's Keser, that's the highest, which is so lofty that it doesn't even manifest in a letter. Because we have absolutely no Hasaga in Keser, which correlates to the will of God, the motivation of God to create the world, which we absolutely don't know. Don't know why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. We could give all kinds of reasons, but they're not the ultimate reason. And Keser is beyond. It's called Ayin, nothingness. Don't know anything about it. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. Now if you notice, within this system of these 4 letters, there are 2 of these 4 letters that are identical, which is the first Hey and the final Hey. And the question is why? What's the depth of that? What's the depth of this? That within Yud Ke Vav Ke, there are actually 2 of the letters that are the same, which if you've been following is Malchus and Bina. These 2 energies, the one just before the birth, the Aim Habanim, that gives birth to the lower 7, and then beyond that you have Malchus, which is the final receptive energy, which is similarly manifest in the letter Hey of Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. So here's a medrash, a famous medrash, you may have heard it. The medrash says that the musical instruments, the kinar, of the mikdash that the Leviim used to play had 7 strings. Kinar had 7 strings. And the medrash says, and it's a Gemara in Erchin also, it's a medrash, that la'asid lava in Olam Haba, or really, in Yemais HaMashiach, there's something called the kinar shel Mashiach. Mashiach is a musician. So he has to be a musician. The kinar of Mashiach is going to have 8 strings. A famous thing, right? Now we have 7 strings. La'asid lava, when Mashiach is coming, there will be 8 strings. So the Modzhitzer asks, what's the big deal? Right? There are harps that have, how many strings does a harp have? I don't know, tens and tens and tens of strings, right? I don't know exactly how many. Dozens of strings, right? So what's the big deal? Like even now we have musical instruments that have so many strings. What's this nekuda? 7, and then we'll have 1 more string. Big deal, right? There are others that have so many. So here's where we have the musical exhibit, and I'm extra proud because, believe it or not, I actually recently started taking guitar lessons. Chazdei Hashem. I never took guitar lessons. I play just Baruch Hashem by ear and practicing a lot over the years. I pick things up. But I'm actually sitting every week with a guitar teacher, Jim, shout out, the holy Jim. And Jim is teaching me how to play guitar. Chazdei Hashem. So, no, Jim's not here. No.
Jim's tuning in, is he?
Jim is not tuning in, no. But we should tune into Jim. He's Argentinian. He's telling me all about the Argentinian Jewish community. Special Eno Yehudi. So this is what Jim says. Jim teaches me that in every scale of music, which I'm going to demonstrate in a minute, there are only 7 notes. Like we said before, there are 7 musical notes, 7 possible notes. And if you're starting from C, and this took me many minutes, maybe even hours. Don't know, not really hours, but to practice, this is what's called the C scale. Okay, so let's count the notes together. And remember that the notes, which are 7, go from A to G, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right, so these are the 7 notes. So if we're starting from C, it's going to go up to G, and then the next 2 are going to be A and B, right? So you're going to have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And it sounds, I think, roughly, something, I hope Jim never sees this, he'll be so upset at me. So it goes like this, I think. Okay, this is C. Okay, so C, let's do it together. C, D, E. No, don't confuse us with your Italian over here. Let's do the letters. C, 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 D, D, E. Next one. F, G, A, B, B, A, B. Oh no. B, and then there's going to be C again. C. So that's all the notes, right? Again. That's it. And then if we wanted to start it again, we can go again, right? So this is C again. Right? So that's basically 2 times the C scale, going all the way down. But if you notice, you hit a wall. There is no next note. There's no such thing. Nobody could be the greatest musician and composer in the world. Nobody could contrive a note beyond these 7. That's it. That's all there is, right? You could do it here. No, here. That's all the notes. And then the next one is... Again, it's the same thing. So the question is, from this standpoint of 7, starting from where we start, right, C. So what happens when you go to the next, right? What is the 8th note? And the answer is, it's the same as the first. That is the 8th note. But it's not really the 8th note. It's just the same note, but on what's called the next octave. On the next octave. So do you hear the difference?
Why is it called an octave?
Now, on the level of, why is it called an octave? Because it's oct. Because it's the 8th.
But it's not the 8th.
No, but every time you hit the 8th, it starts again. Nachon? That's why it's called an octave. Right? So it's an octave up. So it's very difficult in words. Imagine Nebuch, Chas v'Shalom, if a person is deaf, how you're going to explain this to them. It's Bechlal music, right?
You can't explain music.
You can't explain music at all, but certainly not this concept to put into words how it's the same, but it's not the same, right? It's the same tone, but it's the next octave. Very difficult to put into words. Says the Marsha and that Gemara. Ad kan musical accompaniment. So if you just stayed for that, you're welcome to bench and go. So, but we won't be that much longer. Says the Marsha. Says the Heilige Marsha. He says, you know what it means that now we have 7 and La'asad Lavi we have 8? He says right now, coded into reality is only Olam Hazeh, which is the lower 7 midos, because every single thing in this world is a manifestation of one of those 7. That means that those notes that I just played are the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as they manifest in this thing called music. It's an art, it's a light, it's an experience. It's Hashem's presence on a guitar. People don't chap. Hashem is not just confined to the shul or to the Beis Medrash or to something overtly holy. There's nothing that isn't potentially holy. Question is, our machshava. So I was teaching Shmuel also yesterday, my 6-year-old now, all the time, how the whole point of the world is to find Hashem. Hashem is hidden. It's all a huge game of hide and go seek. She says, but Hashem is essentially hidden. He didn't use those words. But he says Hashem, like there's no way to find Hashem. So what's considered finding Hashem? If you know He's there, you found Hashem. Says Rabbi Nachman, all the while that you know He's hiding there, so He's not called hidden. That's the goal of life. Now, to be conscious of that 24/7, it's a big madrega, right? And even to be conscious of it 24/7, not just in a theoretical or philosophical way, but in a deep enough way that it changes the way that we act, the way that we respond to situations, the way that we talk to people, the way that we feel. what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what our motivations are, our dreams are, etc. That's the whole goal of life. That's why we have halacha, to train us how to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu everywhere. But the Baal Shem Tov came to add on. That's why it's called chasidus. A chassid is somebody who goes l'fnim mishuras hadin. Right? So there's a din, and the din says, okay, when you're drinking a cup of water, make a bracha, right? But it doesn't say anywhere that when you're playing guitar, you have to make some kind of l'shem yichud or a bracha, because in Shulchan Aruch, a guitar, there are not halachas that apply to a guitar. Maybe there are hilchas Shabbos that applies to guitar, hilchas Geneva Gzela that apply to a guitar, but not hilchas guitar. And the Baal Shem Tov came to teach a Jew by giving him the tools and the basic first principles, how to approach every single aspect of life, both the Kaddish for sure, but also the realm of what's called the mutter. And to see it as a potential encounter with the divine. How do you do that? By knowing the midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and understanding, here it's easy, music is gewalt, but even just the notes, without a niggun, without a song, and even if they're not played so well, what can you do? I'm still learning. But this is mamish, something heavenly. It's something heavenly, it's something spiritual that's manifesting just like an app. You have the code that goes on the back end, and then there's the front end functionality, but it's not different than the code. It's just the manifestation. This whole world is the revelation of the divine. The world is not called Olam because it hides Hashem away, Ha'elem. It's called Olam because this is God's hiding place. This is where He's hidden. This is not which hides Him away. This is where He's hidden, which means this, and only this, is where He can be found. Where He can be found. So the Marsha says that's our experience of music in Olam Hazeh, which is 7. When Mashiach comes, is going to be revealed the world of Bina, which is the world of 8, which is the eighth string. Says the Modzhitzer, and he writes this all out, like as best as he can explain it without a guitar. He mamish walks you through. These are the notes. This is what an octave is, and it's not exactly the same. He does say it in words. It's kedai to see it inside. If you can, I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants to see it. Says the Modzhitzer, la'asid lavai. This is the deepest thing. It will be olam hazeh, meaning it will be every single thing that we experience already in this world, but it will be one octave, and it's a mashal, it will be one octave up. Meaning when Mashiach comes, it's the same world, but it's the same note, but it's a fundamentally different world. Because every single person is walking around with consciousness of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, so God is not hidden, because how could He be hidden if every single conscious being is in constant realization of God's presence? Umala haaretz deas Hashem. Well, the whole world will be saturated with the knowledge of God. Kamayim layam chasim, like water covers the sea. Right? Everybody will see it. It will be obvious and overt. So then everything will be different. Every interaction people have, their motivations, what the culture looks like, what makes people excited, the projects people work on, the literature, the music, everything will be different, but it won't be different, but it will be fundamentally different. It won't be different, same note. It will be fundamentally different octave. See, he says this is pshat. B'nei Bina, these days of Chanukah are connected to the world of Bina. They are a manifestation, like Rabbi Nachman teaches us in the Modzhiter Rebbe Beis in the 2nd volume, his Chanukah lesson. Some of the Chavri are learning. Chanukah is a revelation of Olam Haba. It's a revelation of that time where there will be nothing left to do but thank Hashem, because it will all be over. Like it will literally be after Kriyas Yamsuf of all of history, and there will be nothing left to do but stand on the glittering shore of the end of history, the threshold of history, and look back and realize with absolute clarity of the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that kol mada avid rachmana litav of it, and all you're going to do and all we're going to do, but Ezra Hashem Ekar, is just to thank Hashem, thank Hashem. So B'nei Bina, when you have the children of Bina, what's the children of Bina? The seven lower midas, right? Because we already said that Bina is the aim, is the mother. Shalach to shalach is the aim. In our reality, we have to send away the mother because that's not our reality right now. We got to focus on the birurim and fixing up the lower 7 midas. But B'nei Bina yemei shmaina, when 7, right, the B'nei Bina, the children of Bina, the lower 7 midas, Yemei Shmaina, they reach a level where they're channeling the energy of Bina, Kavu Shir Urinanim. He says it's going to be the manifestation of that energy of rinanim, of two rinanim is two notes, two octaves, right? The lower note, which then manifests on the higher octave, which is Olam Hazeh, that translates into Olam Haba as a result of the revelation of Bina, which is the same note as Malchus, as the lowest, but because it's the eighth, it's one octave up, and that's going to be the energy of Mashiach. With this, he explains why in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, Bina and Malchus are the same letter, because it's the same note, but it's the next octave up. That's what he says. So Malchus, which is the final Hey, right, is on one level, and that's the first note. Let's say that's the note C, right? And then once you work your way up the 6 meters all the way up, you're gonna have C, the same thing. Lower Hey, higher Hey. This is the Hey. You can much easier do it just on the strings, E and E. Same note. Next octave up. Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba. It's different frequency. The whole thing is a different frequency. So with this, the tzaddik, we'll finish with this. He says this is pshat unbelievable in the machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. You have to see this inside. I'm going to be a Mekatzer now. We'll finish. He says Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are representative of the energies of Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh. Because in Olam Hazeh, who do we paskin like? Hillel. In Olam Haba, we're going to paskin like Beis Shammai. Hillel, he says, is the gematria of the Shem Aleph Dalid Nun Yud, which is always associated with Malchus. It's associated with speech. We're not getting into this whole thing now. Adni Sefasai Tiftach, it has to do with Malchus. That's Hillel. And Shammai is Acha Sha'alti Me'es Hashem is Rosh Hashanah Shammai. Right, one thing, Shivti Beis Hashem, Kol Yimei Chayai, Kol Yimei. Right, it's all of the 7 days of the week, Kol Yimei. It's Bina. It's the womb that contains all of them, where everything goes back into totality, into oneness, where the oneness of Hashem is manifest and revealed through the 7 midas. Shammai is the energy of just Achas. It's the energy of Achashalti, that oneness. Hillel is duplicity, is multiplicity, is duality, is this world. Olam Hazeh. So he says this is their machlokes. Beis Shammai holds that you start with all 8 candles lit. Why? Because Beis Shammai is Bina. So Beis Shammai wants to start the energy from the mother, which gives birth to all the energy. So he says Chanukah comes, you start with all 8. You start from Bina and you work your way down. Hillel, who's the Midah of Malchus, says no, you start with Malchus, you start with 1, and then you work your way up to Bina. Because Hillel is Olam Hazeh going up to Olam Haba. Shammai is Olam Haba already, and he's trying to explain to us the source that gives birth to all of the other midas. So says the Modzhitzer, it comes out that the first and last night of Chanukah is Mamish, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel are meeting, because it's the same note, but it's a different octave. You have to see this. It's wild. He says when you're lighting the first night Chanukah, it's Mamish a kiyum in a certain sense of both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, because they meet. It's the same note. It's the resonance of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, 2 octaves like this. It's the first night and the last night. It's this energy of both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And with this explains, and with this will end, is pshat in Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'kam. This is far out. He says when a tzaddik falls 7 times, and he falls one more time, when you fall to the lowest, V'kam, you're actually connected in a certain way to the highest, right? Because you fall to the lowest possible note, and that's called rock bottom. In some sense, you're connected at the very same time to the higher octave, same note, but the higher octave, because the octaves match each other. And so when a person feels like they're falling in life and they reach a place of the timu kalash manim, Chanukah, right? Absolute darkness, mishatishka achama, when the sun sets in a person's life, they can know that mamish dafka there, karev Hashem lenishbrei lev. In that moment, in a certain paradoxical way, you're closer to Hashem than you would have all the while that you're just cruising. Because in a certain sense, right then on that note, you have access to the next octave. And this is the Torah from Rabbi Nachman, Torah Yud Beis in Tinyana, called Aye, Rabbi Nachman's famous teaching of Aye. That when a person reaches a place in their life where God is so hidden, and they have to confront the hiddenness of God, where they have nothing left to do but cry out, Aye Mekayim Kavoda, where are you, Hashem? Says Rabbi Nachman, Aye haseh la'oila. When a person reaches a point in their life where they feel aye, but they do it with a vulnerable, open heart, so what greater closeness to Hashem can there be than crying out for Hashem? Right? That's beten sha'ol shivati. Hashem is right there. And now from the Modzhitzer, you're able to understand it's the same note, but it's a different octave. Hashem should help us. Be'ezus Hashem, in the schus of Chanukah and the schus of Kavu Shir Inanim, we should go from this, Alam Hazeh, to Elam Haba, Be'ezus Hashem, from the Hey Tata to the Hey Ilah, and all the while that we're still on the journey there, it should be Mamish, Beis Shammai, and Beis Hillel. We should be in Elam Hazeh and also Elam Haba at the same time. Be'ezus Hashem. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Yes, please.
Asking Ashikayach to you and to Yitzhak for introducing me here. I've been going to shul for over 50 years, and this is something quite unique and phenomenal. I've never experienced anything quite like it in my life, and since I've been here in Hendel, I'm a new boy on the block, retired chazan and minister. It's certainly brought light to my life.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough.
And I also want to say, it's a perfect segue, Be'ezus Hashem coming up on Sunday and Monday, some of you may have heard, but Elecha is having our very first fundraising campaign, and it's really something that needs a lot of help, needs a lot of hishtatfus, Baruch Hashem, and something I think benefits the community. And if the Chevra are able to help us, to share the link, certainly, to donate as much as you can. Chanukah Geld, special Indian brought that in halacha to try to give tzedakah on Chanukah if we can, and Be'ezus Hashem will be able to continue to do things like this and grow and spread and bring light to Am Yisrael. That's our hope. That's our hope.
על כל נשימה שאני נושם